The NFL is an ever-changing league, and the first month and a half of the 2024 season has certainly shown that. Some team seasons are effectively over despite having postseason aspirations just a little over a month ago, and on the other side of the coin, other team seasons are just getting started and they are looking to make a deep postseason run. As we know, only one team can win a Super Bowl, but it's not set in stone who's going to win. And in today's video, we're going to discuss a couple of stars that could be on the move and could be traded in the next few weeks. One of the coolest things about the NFL over the past 5 to 7 years is how much the NFL trade deadline has picked up, not just for a team or two, but for the entire league. For any younger viewers, believe it or not, it used to be just another day, but thankfully those days are over. The trade deadline is a lot more interesting, and we could see a handful of teams try to make a Super Bowl push with what they believe could be the missing piece. And there is a lot to dive into in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing Browns receiver Amari Cooper. Amari has been one of the most consistent receivers over the past decade, as he was selected number 4 overall by the Raiders back in 2015. Amari was traded to the Cowboys during the 2018 season, and eventually traded to the Browns in the 2022 offseason. Amari is in the final year of his deal, and he is 30 years old. Given the situation in Cleveland, it makes a lot of sense for Amari to be traded to a serious contender. Whether that team is the Buffalo Bills or Kansas City Chiefs, both are viable options for Amari, and to be honest, I would prefer him to go to the Chiefs due in large part to the injuries they have sustained. They lost Marquise Brown for the year before he could even play a regular season game for them, and Rashee Rice is done for the year after suffering an injury in Week 4. The Chiefs are still 5-0 despite this, but it's fair to say Patrick Mahomes hasn't looked close to the Patrick Mahomes we're used to. He's thrown 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions to start the season, and the Chiefs have just one game with 400 yards of offense in their first 5, which was against the Saints on Monday Night Football. It is worth noting they are also banged up at the running back position, and that both Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster both turned the clock back to the 2017 or 2018 version of themselves, but I don't think relying on both of those players in 2024 is sustainable. Amari, on the other hand, is working on 4 1,100-yard seasons in the past 5, and would undoubtedly be an upgrade to the position. The lackluster quarterback play in Cleveland in 2024 to start the year will certainly hurt Amari's chances of having a 5th 1,100-yard season in 6 years, but the Chiefs are in a Super Bowl window, and bringing in Amari certainly helps their chances of doing what no other NFL franchise has ever done, and that's three-peat. Amari will turn 31 in June, and given that he is on an expiring contract, I don't think the cost would be all that much either. I think it would be a late day 3 pick, or maybe even a pick swap, and the Browns are in a position where they simply need draft capital. Cleveland clearly is not going anywhere this year, and if there has ever been a definition of a selling team at the deadline, Cleveland fits the bill. I don't think Amari would re-sign with the Browns for several reasons, and the quarterback situation is certainly one. He also has just one career playoff win, which was back in the 2018 wildcard round against Seattle. Amari is closing in on 10,000 career receiving yards and has over 60 career touchdowns, and out of all of the talented receivers over the past 10 years, whether it's been AB, Julio, Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, or whoever, Amari is often forgotten about despite having 7 1,000-yard seasons and 5 Pro Bowls. And to be fair, he's never been on any of those guys' levels, but in terms of bringing in a talented player for a relatively low cost, this is a move I think Chiefs general manager Brett Veach has to make. I know the day 3 pick trade value may come as a surprise to some, but this is a 30-year-old receiver on an expiring deal. No team is going to cough up a 1st or 2nd round pick for him. I also think Amari has a very high floor as a player, and despite having just 250 receiving yards in 6 games and being on pace for just 708 yards, if he is traded this week to Kansas City and plays the final 12 games for the Chiefs, because remember Kansas City just had a bye, he could very easily have another 1,000-yard season. I know Juju is coming off of a great game, and Xavier Worthy has had some splash plays here and there, but I don't think that's enough to carry a receiving core, and I think the Chiefs need to go get Amari Cooper. Max Crosby to the Lions is a trade I like a lot, and it's a trade I liked a lot prior to the Aiden Hutchinson injury. Hutch is a one-of-one player, and to give you an idea of how historic of a start to the season he was having, and to put some numbers behind it, well, he had 45 pressures on less than 200 pass rushing snaps. And keep in mind, Hutch had a good rookie season 2 years ago, and he had 53 pressures on over 550 pass rushing snaps. So Hutch would have eclipsed his rookie pressure mark in week 7 when the Lions play the Minnesota Vikings. And to be honest, I wanted the Lions to trade for Max Crosby prior to the Hutch injury because there's not a lot of times in the NFL where you can truly justify trading multiple first-round picks for a player and think that a team is going to be fine. Because while Max Crosby is a good player, and while he will certainly bolster the Lions pass rush, or would bolster the Lions pass rush if they traded for him, there's a lot of other teams that could certainly afford to trade for Max, but it wouldn't be as impactful as Max going to the Lions would be. For reference, the Panthers could very easily meet the asking price if Max were to become available, as they have the Rams' second-round pick in 2025 from the trade up to go get Braden Fisk, and they of course have their first-round pick and then their first-round picks after 2025. It's a matter of being able to pair a good team that can afford the price and being able to meet the demands that would take to go get Max Crosby. One of the other major reasons as to why I want the Lions to trade for Max Crosby is because they're in a rare position where they're in a Super Bowl window while still having several great players on rookie scale contracts. Whenever you think of the Detroit Lions, maybe outside of Jared Goff, most of the guys are 25 or younger, and of course with the exception of Taylor Decker and Frank Ragnow, but whether it's Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams, Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean guys, this team is loaded with talent, and you can go on with names as to how loaded they are, and Aiden Hutchinson is set to make $11 million next year. Now, when Hutch's rookie contract is up, I fully expect Aiden to get 30, 35 a year, somewhere in there, but we are not at that point in time, and this is a reason why I would trade for Max Crosby if I were Brad Holmes. I know the first-round picks are a big deal, and it would probably cost 2 first-round picks to go get Max Crosby, but this team needs Max Crosby now more than ever before, and to give you an idea of where the edge rushers are without Aiden Hutchinson, the next leading pass rusher in pressures for the Lions through 5 games is Marcus Davenport, who has just 7 pressures, and again, he is out for the year. After Marcus Davenport, it's Josh Pascal with 6 pressures. Now, Josh hasn't played all 5 games, but you get the point as to how desperate the Lions are at the pass rushing position, specifically at edge. So, the Lions are in a position where they have all of these guys in rookie scale contracts, and I would argue that the 2 first-round picks for Detroit, while obviously important, are not as important to the Lions as you can make for nearly every other franchise, maybe even the Kansas City Chiefs, because of how well Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have drafted over the past 4 years. Now, you may be thinking, well, what about the financial implications of trading for Max Crosby, given that they just signed Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell to contract extensions? Well, the reality is whenever you sign those guys to contract extensions, not always, but often, the first true year of the contract extension really isn't that big of a cap number, and for reference, Amon-Ra St. Brown is set to make $13.9 million, and this is per over the cap in 2025, at least that's his scheduled cap hit. Penei Sewell is a little lower, so you still have both of those guys at a combined less than $25 million in 2025, and while Max Crosby would be getting paid in 2025 and 2026, you don't really have the big, large cap hits for both Penei and Amon-Ra until 2026. And then even after that, yes, Hutch will eventually get paid. Brian Branch, I would imagine, will eventually get paid as well. But right now, all that matters is a Super Bowl. And the Lions are very clearly in a Super Bowl caliber window. And I will say this as a Vikings fan. Guys, I watch this offense every week. I watch Ben Johnson, and I will be honest here, I am absolutely terrified of this offense. And now, unfortunately, Hutch went down, and that is very unfortunate to the Lions defense and what it means for their Super Bowl chances, but you can go get Max Crosby, and you can still be just fine. And then in 2025, you can have the duo of Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson for at least 2 years, hopefully longer depending on the financial part. I don't know how Max Crosby would want to stay in Detroit. Maybe there would be a hometown discount, considering at that point in his career, he would have made over $100 million, but that's 2 or 3 years down the road. The point is, the Lions are in a great situation to be able to trade for Max Crosby because they have a plethora of talent on their roster, and then they can pair Max Crosby with Aiden Hutchinson and have what would to me be the best edge duo in the league for at least 2 seasons. And this is all, by the way, while still being able to win the Super Bowl in 2024. So if they go get Max Crosby, I think there's a real chance they not only can win the Super Bowl this year, but when they have one of the best defensive players in the league come back from injury next next year, maybe even go for back-to-back. I don't think people realize how truly loaded the Detroit Lions are, and this could be the cherry on top for what is one of the most complete rosters in the entire NFL, and I'm really hoping for the sake of Lions fans that they go bring Max Crosby home. The next one is going to be surprising because a lot of the time with players being moved at the deadline, it's usually about finding a marriage of a bad team moving a player on an expiring contract to a team that's contending for a Super Bowl. And there was a reason there were a lot of rumors last year this time about the Titans potentially moving on from Derrick Henry, and of course, the Raiders moving on from Davante Adams. And we saw at times how unhappy Davante was throughout the receiver documentary. But this next one is the Panthers trading Deontay Johnson to the Patriots, and it's for very similar reasons as to why they brought him in the first place. The main reason Deontay was brought in was to help out their young quarterback in Bryce Young, and I do credit the Panthers for every move they made this offseason to try and help Bryce Young. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, and we've seen the level of play at the quarterback position improve since Andy Dalton took over. And over the past couple of games, Deontay has been a really productive player. He has 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, and he's went for over 75 yards in 3 of the last 4 games, including a season-high 122-yard outing against the Raiders. I understand there may be some pushback from Panthers fans with this one, but what I would say is the Panthers didn't give up much to get him in the first place. They gave up corner Deontay Jackson and a 7th round pick for Deontay Johnson and a 6th round pick. And if you can get the 6th round pick back from the New England Patriots and send him to New England so he can work with Drake May, I think this is a trade that would benefit both teams. Receivers have to look out for themselves, and with the uncertainty at the quarterback position in 2025 and beyond for Carolina, I would be kind of surprised if Deontay stays in the Queen City this offseason. And I can't blame him because you have one shot at an NFL career, and Deontay doesn't owe the organization anything to stay for 3 or 4 years and to mentor Xavier Legette and to hope that by the time Deontay is 31 or 32, that this team may be able to make a deep postseason run. Because what I think needs to be remembered about the Panthers in this trade is they are not close to competing. They're not a player or 2 away, and Deontay will turn 29 next July, and he is a free agent this offseason anyway. I think this makes a lot of sense for New England because the receiving core isn't very good, and like with Amari, Deontay is a solid player and has a very high floor at the receiver position. We've seen New England strike out on big receivers over the past few off seasons like Brandon Ayuk or DeAndre Hopkins, and sure, Deontay isn't on their level, but he is better than what they currently have. I liked what I saw from Drake May in his debut, and I know the big thing with New England is going to be fixing the offensive line, which I think they will in the 2025 offseason, whether it be through free agency or with their first round pick, but why not bring in a veteran receiver that's not a KJ Osborne or a Kendrick Bourne and see what your rookie quarterback can do with Deontay? Deontay, of course, isn't going to fix every problem the Patriots have, but if he liked what he saw from Drake May for the remainder of the year, he may stay and play there for another year or 2, which would be huge for Drake May's development. The cost would be very low, and I think New England should try and make it happen. The main reason for Carolina trading him would be due to the benching of Bryce Young, as Deontay was brought in to work with him, and we all know how that played out. The Minnesota Vikings are in a situation that I don't think even the most loyal diehard fans thought they would be in entering the year, and that's coming off of their Week 6 bye with a 5-0 record. Sam Darnold has played pretty well through the first 5 games, really outside of the Jets game, and they have looked like a very complete team. Brian Flores' defense is legit, and this is a Super Bowl caliber defense, but they're not a perfect team, and no team is to be fair, but the Vikings have a potential hole at the running back position. Aaron Jones had an injury in the Week 5 game against the Jets and was unable to finish the game, which meant backup Ty Chandler had to come in and play running back for the remainder of the ballgame. I don't think Ty Chandler is that good of a running back. I think he's okay, and I think he's okay in an RB2 role, but if Aaron Jones goes down, then I think the Vikings' chances of seriously competing go out the window. I think that would force the game more into Sam Darnold's hands, which is not what the Vikings want, and the Jets did a good job of forcing the game into Darnold's hands, and we saw how that worked out. So for the Vikings to trade for a running back prior to the trade deadline is a move that I like a lot, and it's a move that I think they need to make. Now, the Vikings do not have a lot of draft capital in 2025, so this would have to be a 2026 draft pick, and as we've seen before at the trade deadline, General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is not afraid to go get a player, even if it's in the division, as he traded for TJ Hawkinson back in 2022. So this player that the Vikings would would trade is not in division. I don't think they would go get a running back in the division, but I would really like for the Vikings to go trade for a guy like Nick Chubb of the Browns, depending on how he plays in week 7, and if Nick Chubb doesn't play well, and if you're not sure where he is post-injury, then a guy like Dameon Pierce to me would make a lot of sense. The Vikings need another running back, and I don't think they're going to be able to sign one off the streets that would play at the level that either Nick Chubb or Dameon Pierce would be able to. And the cost here wouldn't be a lot because it would be for a second running back, as neither player, at least I don't think Nick Chubb would overtake Aaron Jones' starting job, and if he did, I would be all for that because that would mean the Vikings would be getting a Pro Bowl caliber running back because Aaron Jones has played really well to start the year. But the point is, the Vikings need to go get more running back help. It would be beneficial to the team to not have Sam Darnold throw the ball 45 or 50 times a game to try and win because the running game is inefficient. Again, I think Ty Chandler is an okay second running back. I definitely don't think he is a starting caliber running back, and I think outside of one game in 2023 against the Bengals, the numbers would suggest that. Now, I didn't want to go with Davante Adams going to the Jets because that was a very, very obvious trade that pretty much everybody has thought of, or even Davante Adams to the Ravens, that would also make a lot of sense, or Davante Adams to the Chiefs is a trade that I don't think is going to happen because I don't think the Raiders are going to trade him in division, and I think they would rather have him sit out games than potentially give the Chiefs a chance to three-peat. So I didn't really want to include Davante Adams in today's video because I'm sure all of you guys have heard about the Davante Adams trade rumors and where he could go at this point. So that was the reason for not including Davante in today's video. But that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 38% of people watching are subscribed. It helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.